Okay, let's just jump right in. What if?
Yeah.
What if everything you thought you knew about, say, the origins of religion or uh, the purpose of humanity, even the whole story of creation, what if it was all fundamentally misunderstood?
Mm.
Imagine, like, a history where the truth wasn't just forgotten, but actively pushed underground, so far down it actually became the foundation for, secret societies and these really radical ways of reading our most sacred texts.
It's a powerful starting point, isn't it? Suggests hidden layers right from the get-go.
Exactly. So welcome everyone to the deep dive. Today we are embarking on a pretty ambitious exploration. We're diving into esoteric histories, goddess to gnosis.
Yeah, and this article, it doesn't just nudge conventional history. It really tries to dismantle it piece by fascinating piece.
Right. So our mission today is to unpack these hidden layers. We're looking at Western religious thought, the surprising origins of secret societies, and honestly a really audacious reinterpretation of Bible stories, cosmic battles, the whole 9 yards.
We're trying to connect some dots that maybe most people don't even see on the same map, and hopefully reveal some insights that might, genuinely redefine how you think about power, truth, spirituality.
For sure. Over this deep dive, we'll journey way back from ancient goddess worship, see how that possibly shifted to monotheism. We'll try to unveil the purpose behind some of these secretive groups.
And look at figures everyone knows: Adam, Eve, Noah, even Jesus, but through a completely different esoteric lens. It's quite a shift in perspective.
It really is. And this isn't just like a history lesson revisited. It's about peeling back layers, finding perspectives that radically challenge what's commonly accepted. It's about gaining a unique insight into belief systems that have, shaped our world for thousands of years.
Yeah, expect some aha moments, maybe some wait what moments too. It invites you to question not just what you've been taught, but maybe how you've been taught to see reality.
Get ready to dive deep. Okay, so we begin our journey by going way, way back to what the article describes as the earliest stage of religious development in the Western world.
Right, this is before the massive temples, before written dogma, before, centralized religious authorities.
It's a time rooted deeply in the earth itself,
Yeah.
really aligned with the basic cycles of life.
And what really grabs me about this part of the article is how vividly it paints this picture.
Right.
A civilization born directly from the most fundamental human needs, right? Growing food, ensuring you have kids, continuing the group.
The basics of survival, really.
Exactly. This mother goddess civilization, as it's called. It wasn't abstract theology. It was intensely practical, visceral, deeply connected to the pulse of life.
So what was at the center of that?
Well, at its very heart, the woman's womb was seen as the central divine portal. Think about that.
Wow.
This wasn't just biology, It was elevated to this profound spiritual significance. It embodied creation, life itself. Can you imagine the societal impact when the source of life is seen as inherently divine?
It completely changes the power dynamic we're used to.
Totally. It naturally elevated the status of women, positioned them as, earthly vessels of the divine, co-creators with the cosmos, almost. This wasn't just a nice idea. It was foundational to their whole social fabric.
That is a monumental departure from a lot of modern society. It sounds like this worldview wasn't just focused on women, though, but like an entire interconnected system.
Precisely. It was holistic, integrated. Everything was part of this living, breathing system. The worldview saw the woman's womb, the stars, linking to very early astrology and cosmic rhythms and the growth of crops. It was all intimately aligned, reflecting each other in this grand, harmonious cycle.
So signs and symbols must have been incredibly important.
Hugely important. And symbolic language. Look at the bird, right? Often found in artifacts from this era, it wasn't just a bird. It represented dominion over the sky, the spirit, a connection to the higher, unseen realms.
And the bowl, often associated with male power.
Right. But here it represented male virility, energy, but integrated respectfully within this largely feminine-centered cosmology. It was a vital force, sure, but one understood as serving the larger creative impulse, not dominating it.
Okay, and what about practices? The article mentions sexual rituals, which often carries negative connotations today.
Yeah, but in this mother goddess civilization, it seems sexual rituals weren't hidden or shameful. Quite the opposite. They were communal, deeply spiritual, directly tied to fertility cults, seen as a sacred act, a direct participation in the divine act of creation. Imagine a society where, the physical act of love was a religious sacrament, openly celebrated, a reaffirmation of life's abundance, free from the moral judgments that came later.
No secrecy, no sin attached to
Right.
desire because it mirrored cosmic creation.
Exactly.
So if we look at the whole structure,
Yeah.
no private property, you said, a lack of rigid hierarchies, this open, shame-free attitude toward sexuality, it paints a picture of an incredibly egalitarian society.
It really does.
It makes you pause, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's such a stark contrast to our modern world. You can't help but wonder what profound aspects of human experience might have been lost, in that huge shift away from such a communal, integrated worldview.
Absolutely. It fundamentally challenges our assumptions about, well, human nature and how societies have to be structured. Imagine a world where mine versus yours, especially about land, resources, maybe even the food you grew, was just foreign.
No fences, no deeds.
Because the land was seen as alive, belonging to everyone, nurtured communally, its bounty shared for the collective good. And similarly, the whole idea of a fixed social ladder, where one person has inherent power over another by birth or wealth, mostly absent.
How were decisions made then?
Likely collectively, maybe through matriarchal councils, valuing wisdom, experience, the continuity of life, rather than just brute force or inherited status. It suggests a very different baseline understanding of humanity's place, prioritizing community, ecological harmony, spiritual connection over individual gain.
Which makes you wonder, what could possibly trigger the unraveling of something so integrated? And what are the consequences of losing that?
It seems this seemingly idyllic, egalitarian world wasn't destined to last forever. Forces of change began to stir, leading to a totally new era of belief and power.
And this transition, according to the article, wasn't exactly peaceful.
No, unfortunately, it seems it was often profoundly violent. Polytheism didn't just sort of emerge organically from within. It came primarily from external pressures. Warfare, fighting over scarce resources, migrations of different groups clashing.
And women were particularly affected.
It seems so, yes. In times of conflict, women were crucial for having children, keeping the population going, right? So they became targets, or spoils of war. This scarcity and conflict led directly to concepts that were apparently absent before. Private property creating divisions, rigid social hierarchies as groups conquered others, and crucially, the rise of patriarchy.
Where men gained status.
Through battle prowess, yeah. And women sometimes seen as rewards, diminishing their previous divine status down to, essentially, property.
So instead of that shared life-affirming focus, the divine itself became something to be possessed, almost a tool for power. I can see how that would lead to, like, a whole roster of tribal gods.
Exactly right. Each tribe or conquering group had its own god, often a war god, reflecting these new realities of conflict and dominance.
So when one tribe conquered another,
It wasn't just a military win, it was a theological statement. The victor's god was seen as stronger, more potent, and they'd often absorb or subjugate the gods of the defeated tribe. This process, this war-driven religious consolidation, led to the complex pantheons we know, like the Greek or Roman gods.
with all their squabbles and domains.
Reflecting human power struggles, yeah. And in this new, turbulent worldview, humans were often seen as just playthings of these powerful, often bickering, very human-like gods.
So fate ruled, not individual choice.
Largely, yes. Fate and fortune governed not just humans, but even the gods themselves, leaving people feeling they had very little control. Prayers were often about appeasing, bargaining, trying to influence, rather than connecting with some inner divine spark.
Sounds like a pretty chaotic and unpredictable world, even in the heavens. But the article also mentions something interesting emerging then, this concept of universal justice.
Yes, that's a key and maybe surprising development amidst all the godly drama. Despite the gods often being capricious and self-serving, this idea emerged of a universal justice, like a moral law of gravity,
Above the gods.
operating above even the most powerful deities, yeah. It suggested a cosmic order, consequences for actions that transcended divine whims. It wasn't about one god's command, but a higher impersonal principle of right and wrong that even the gods were somehow subject to. And this fundamentally reshaped things. Not just religion, but societal structure, too, paving the way for more formal laws and changing the individual's place within it all. It marked a huge shift from that collective, harmonious existence rooted in the earth to one often marked by struggle, hierarchy, and a more distant, often indifferent divine, tempered only by this budding idea of universal, impersonal justice.
Okay, so empires grow, ambitions grow, wanting singular, unifying power. And that sets the stage for the next huge transformation in religious thought, one that really defines much of Western civilization.
And this is where monotheism decisively enters the picture, driven significantly by the ambitions of empire.
So it wasn't just a spiritual shift.
The article argues no. It highlights how monotheism, especially Christianity, was actively spread and consolidated by vast empires. The Roman Empire played a crucial, almost instrumental role in its widespread adoption, making it the dominant belief system across its territories.
And the core idea was,
The revolutionary idea of a single, absolute, divine entity. One all-powerful creator, outside creation but governing it totally. This fundamentally altered humanity's relationship with the divine, from many gods to one, demanding exclusive worship and loyalty.
and this is where it gets incredibly interesting, because the article argues this wasn't just about swapping gods. It introduced a whole new way of thinking, laying the philosophical bedrock for modern Western civilization. It points to three core ideas.
Absolutely critical concepts, yes, for understanding our current framework. First, the establishment of truth. Capital T.
Not truths, plural.
No, a single, absolute, undeniable truth, handed down from this one, all-powerful God, totally different from earlier, more fluid or regional understandings. It set the stage for seeking universal, objective facts.
Okay, truth. What's second?
Second, evil became absolute. To defy this one true God wasn't just wrong, it was an act of absolute, intrinsic evil, introducing this stark moral dichotomy. Good versus evil. No more shades of gray, but a clear cosmic battle.
Right. And the third?
Individualism, with unprecedented force. The emphasis shifted dramatically to personal faith, personal accountability, personal salvation. This often began to outweigh, even replace, communal identity, tribal loyalty, civic duty.
The individual soul alone before God.
Exactly. Profoundly revolutionary, and it still echoes in our modern ideas of individual rights and responsibilities.
So if monotheism was so absolute, so unifying, what happened to all those older beliefs, pantheons, the mother goddess traditions? They just, poof, vanish.
Far from it.
Yeah.
These new monotheistic ideas were back then incredibly counterintuitive, especially compared to the older, more fluid, metaphor-based systems that had lasted for millennia.
And the article says monotheism was pretty forceful about it.
Often violently suppressive, yes. Seeing other religions not as alternatives, but as heresies, as absolute evil, temples destroyed, texts burned, followers persecuted. However, and this is the crucial insight here, ideas themselves can't really be killed.
They just get pushed underground?
Exactly. Suppression wasn't annihilation, it was a forced transformation. It created a vacuum in public, sure, but in the shadows, these ancient truths adapted, mutated, and maybe even got stronger through being forced into secrecy.
Which raises the question, what happens when powerful ideas are forced underground? How do they survive? How do they pop back up?
And that leads us directly to our next segment, doesn't it? Hinting at the enduring power of those suppressed beliefs and the birth of a whole clandestine world.
Right, so monotheism sweeps through, tries to erase the old ways, but you're saying some ideas, even under huge pressure, can't truly be killed. They just change form, go underground, maybe.
That's the argument.
And that's where our journey takes us next, into this clandestine world that apparently preserved these ancient truths.
Indeed. And what's fascinating in the article is how it explains the rise of mystery schools. These weren't just random meetups, they were clandestine movements. Often started, interestingly, by women and spiritualists who felt compelled to preserve the sacred, suppressed truths of that earlier mother goddess civilization.
So their purpose was preservation against the tide.
Profoundly so. To safeguard a lineage of understanding, a different kind of knowledge that predated and, importantly, directly contradicted the rising monotheistic dogma. They were like the original guardians of the flame, ensuring these insights into the divine feminine, the interconnected cosmos, weren't totally lost.
So these mystery schools started as acts of preservation, but as Christianity got more and more powerful, they had to evolve, right? The secrecy must have ramped up.
Precisely. As Christianity became the dominant state-sponsored force, these schools faced an existential threat. To survive, they couldn't stay as loose groups. They evolved into more formalized secret societies.
Deeper secrecy needed.
An even deeper cloak, yeah. Not just for the knowledge, but for the lives of their members. They risked persecution, torture, death if exposed. We're talking groups that later became famous, or infamous, depending on your view. The Knights Templar, Freemasons, Rosicrucians, eventually the Illuminati.
Names we all know.
But the article connects them directly to this ancient tradition of preserving a fundamental radical belief, a lineage stretching back millennia.
Okay, let's unpack this core belief then,
Mm-hmm.
because it sounds like it completely flips our usual understanding of reality upside down.
It absolutely does. And this is where these societies radically diverge from mainstream thought. Their central bedrock belief, the core of their esoteric tradition, was that the universe originates not from physical matter,
But from,
imagination, consciousness, vibration. This profound concept, often summed up as mind leads to matter.
whoa, okay.
Think about that. What if everything you're taught about the universe's building blocks is backward? What if matter doesn't create mind, but mind creates matter?
That's huge.
It's the electrifying core belief. Consciousness, imagination, vibration are the primary architects of physical reality. This totally contrasts with the materialist thinking dominating modern science. It suggests thought and intention are primary, not secondary, to physical existence.
And their practices reflected this.
Yes. They included things like sexual spiritual rituals, echoing the mother goddess era, and deep sacred metaphysics aimed at understanding and maybe even manipulating these energetic principles. And because this knowledge was so subversive, so threatening to the established order,
The secrecy had to be absolute.
utterly absolute, maintaining this esoteric knowledge was paramount. Breaking secrecy was, apparently, a capital offense, which underscores the immense danger and the profound significance they attached to what they were protecting.
That's incredible to think about. What kind of truth is so powerful, so threatening, that people would literally risk death to preserve it? And what does it mean for us today to seriously consider a universe built on consciousness, not just stuff?
The implications are vast, aren't they? It challenges how we see reality, power, creation itself. It suggests a profound challenge to our own sense of agency and the potential within each of us.
Okay, so with this understanding of underground knowledge,
Yeah.
this radical idea that mind precedes matter, we're ready to look at something really provocative. This allows for a complete reinterpretation of some of the most foundational stories in the Bible, seen through this esoteric lens.
Right.
What if the heroes, the villains, even God himself,
Mm-hmm.
aren't who we've been taught they are?
This is where the esoteric view just takes a sharp turn from the mainstream, and it can be deeply unsettling for many people.
Let's start with the Orthodox view first, just to set the stage.
Okay. The Orthodox mainstream belief, as most of us know it, gives a clear narrative. A series of covenants between a benevolent God and humanity. Adam, Noah, Abraham, Moses, David, then Jesus.
Right.
It talks about human sin, especially eating the forbidden fruit, divine punishment, and Jesus' ultimate role as the Redeemer, sacrificing himself for our sins. It's a clear story. Fall, redemption, a loving but just God guiding us.
But the article presents this truly radical alternative, one that flips the whole thing, suggesting the God of the Bible isn't.
Yeah.
Well, isn't God.
That's the core, deeply unsettling assertion of this esoteric belief system. It states that the God of the Bible, the creator figure we read about, is actually a false god, a demiurge.
Demiurge.
Yes, not just a different interpretation, but a complete reframing, suggesting a cosmic deception. According to these esoteric teachings, this demiurge wasn't the ultimate creator. He was a being created by a rebellious goddess named Sophia.
Sophia.
Yeah. She, in an act of trying to create without the true divine source, without that ultimate unity, inadvertently birthed this flawed, incomplete entity, the demiurge.
You mentioned the monad earlier. What exactly is the monad in this context? Is that the true God?
Yes. The monad is defined as the true God, pure mind, pure spirit, the ultimate reality, the source of all authentic being. It's entirely transcendent, utterly perfect, beyond any form or limitation we can grasp.
So not a personified being.
Think of it less as a being with a personality and more as the cosmic blueprint, the purest consciousness from which all true existence, all genuine spiritual light flows, uncorrupted by matter or imperfection.
Okay, so the monad is the true source. What about the demiurge then?
The demiurge is described almost as a monstrous being, ignorant, sometimes malevolent, completely unaware of the true reality of the monad. He believes he is the only God, the ultimate creator, and in his delusion, he created our prison-like world,
Prison-like, not just a metaphor for life being hard.
presented as more literal than that, implying the very fabric of our perceived reality, our physical universe, is a flawed, limited construct, made by a lesser, ignorant, maybe even tyrannical deity.
Wow. Okay, let's pause there. If we really try to imagine the implications, living in a world created by a false, unaware God, a cosmic imposter, how does that change everything? Our view of suffering, purpose, reality itself?
It's profound. It suggests our established doctrines, our moral systems, sin, salvation, might all be based on a flawed premise, a grand deception.
So good and bad in this world might not align with true cosmic understanding.
Exactly. It shifts the whole burden of spiritual liberation from external obedience to an internal awakening. Recognizing the true divine within yourself, the spark of the monad, rather than worshiping an external, deluded creator who maybe wants to keep you tethered to his limited reality.
It redefines salvation as escape, not submission.
Precisely.
Gnosis. And in this prison world, humanity faced even bigger challenges, like powerful non-human entities involved in our enslavement.
These are the Nephilim, figures mentioned right there in Genesis 6, but often just brushed aside as mythical giants.
But the article takes them literally.
Very literally, details them as giant hybrid children, the direct offspring of rebellious angels, often called watchers in esoteric texts, and human women.
And their role wasn't just being big.
No, according to this view, their role in early history was incredibly powerful and malevolent. Not just powerful beings, they actively enslaved humanity, using their superior knowledge and strength to dominate and control.
And this led to Noah's flood.
Their unchecked corruption and violence were apparently so pervasive that they directly precipitated the flood, which, in this view, wasn't just divine punishment, but maybe a cosmic cleansing, aimed at wiping out these hybrid oppressors and their corrupting influence.
Okay, here's where it gets really provocative. The article makes this shocking modern connection. It doesn't just say they were historical figures. It claims they're still alive.
That's the startling and, yeah, deeply unsettling claim from these esoteric sources. The Nephilim, according to this perspective, aren't just relics. They are identified as the richest and most powerful people on Earth today.
Wow.
It suggests the ancient enslavers are still exerting influence, operating behind the scenes, manipulating global power structures, economies, political systems.
So, if you pause to consider that,
Yeah.
how does knowing that, or even entertaining the possibility, change your view of world power dynamics? Who really controls things?
It connects the ancient past dramatically to right now, doesn't it? Offering this chilling, almost conspiratorial explanation for persistent inequality, systemic control, the enduring nature of power, a hidden hand guiding history from the shadows.
So in this world, dominated by a false god and these ancient enslavers, a figure emerges, Jesus.
Okay.
But in this esoteric view, he's radically different from the mainstream portrayal.
This is a truly profound and revolutionary reinterpretation of who Jesus was and what his mission was about.
He wasn't the son of the Demiurge.
In the esoteric view, no, not the son of the false god who made this prison world. Instead, he's understood as a direct messenger from the monad, the true God, the ultimate source of pure consciousness and spiritual truth.
So his purpose was totally different from atoning for sin.
Entirely different. He came as an awakener, a liberator, sent to reveal the profound truth about the false god's deception and to guide humanity towards spiritual liberation from this prison-like world. His mission was to empower us to break free from the Demiurge's grip.
So his core message wasn't about appeasing an angry external god, but something much more internal. A path to awakening inside each person. Like Gnosis again.
Exactly. His key teachings in this context were explicitly reject materialism, shed the pursuit of worldly power, detach from the illusions of this physical realm,
And embrace.
embrace love, cultivate imagination, seek profound spirituality, all seen as direct connections to the monad. And most critically, his message was to awaken the divine spark, that piece of the monad that resides within each person.
A call to self-knowledge. An internal revolution.
Rather than blind adherence to external dogma or rituals prescribed by the Demiurge's system, yes. And through this esoteric lens, the reason for his death becomes tragically clear.
How so?
His crucifixion is directly linked to the profound threat his message posed to the ruling elites, specifically the Nephilim and the Roman Empire serving their agenda. His truth fundamentally undermined their control, exposed their deception, and offered humanity a path to freedom they desperately wanted to suppress.
This challenges the conventional understanding so deeply, painting him as this revolutionary spiritual teacher, whose message of inner awakening was seen as a direct threat to worldly power.
Right.
What if his sacrifice wasn't for sin, but for exposing this profound, hidden truth about reality and the powers controlling this world? That's...
Yeah, that's a truly thought-provoking perspective, radically reshapes his whole story.
It does.
So, if these profound truths about the monad, the Demiurge, the Nephilim, Jesus' real mission were pushed underground, how did they even survive? How were they passed down through generations, sometimes hidden in plain sight?
Well, often, according to this view, they were encoded. subtly woven into stories, myths, even literature that seemed familiar on the surface but carried a deeper hidden meaning for those who knew how to look.
Like secret messages in books.
Precisely. Literature becomes this powerful vehicle for esoteric knowledge, a cipher. The article highlights John Milton, the blind poet. Revered for his literary genius, sure, but also rumored to have been a member of a secret society. And the claim is he deliberately put hidden meanings in Paradise Lost.
Deliberately and ingeniously encoded esoteric truths into his epic poem, yes. On the surface, it looks like a retelling of the biblical fall, confirming the Orthodox story. But underneath, for those with the esoteric key, it carries a very different, subversive message.
And the most radical part is about Satan, isn't it? Suggesting a completely different role for him.
That's the most provocative revelation, yes. In this esoteric reading of Milton, Satan isn't pure evil, not the embodiment of wickedness. He's portrayed more like a heroic rebel,
Heroic.
embodying defiance against the false god, the Demiurge, who Milton, through this lens, is subtly criticizing. Satan's journey from hell isn't seen as a descent into more evil, but symbolically, like a soul escaping a material prison, a spiritual awakening from ignorance, even like a baby being born into new understandings, symbolizing liberation, new beginnings.
And Eve, how does she fit in?
Crucially, Eve is persuaded by Satan, not through lies or malicious temptation, but through truth. His message to her is basically, knowledge is power. Seeking wisdom is the path to growth. And disobedience, in this specific context, is often necessary for real enlightenment, breaking free from imposed ignorance.
Okay, here's where it gets truly mind-bending. The article claims the Bible itself, specifically Genesis 3, confirms Satan was telling Eve the truth. That's astonishing, almost unthinkable in mainstream views.
It is astonishing, and it forces a profound reevaluation of one of the foundational stories. If you reread Genesis 3 closely, after they eat the fruit, God says, "Behold, the man is become as one of us, to know good and evil."
Right.
The esoteric interpretation focuses right there, suggesting the knowledge Satan offered was genuine. The forbidden fruit represented a direct path to intellectual and spiritual enlightenment, something the Demiurge didn't want humans to have.
So, wrestling with that paradox, what if the figure we demonize is, in this hidden context, a liberator, a bringer of truth?
It forces a radical rethink of good and evil as defined by authority, doesn't it? Encourages you to look beyond surface narratives and ask, who benefits from this story being told this way? It flips original sin on its head. Maybe it was an act of courageous, truth-seeking transgression.
And this idea of manipulating narratives, it goes beyond just religious texts, back into older mythologies.
Absolutely. This brings us back to the Nephilim again, those hybrid offspring. While the Bible paints them as villains' corruption, oppression, these esoteric traditions connect them directly to revered ancient mythic heroes.
Like who?
Figures like Hercules, Achilles, Perseus, the demigods, the legendary strongmen of pagan cultures.
So the argument is the Bible rewrote their stories.
Actively rewrote these ancient myths, yes, deliberately reframing these powerful godlike figures, the gods and heroes of pagan cultures, as villains, fallen angels, instruments of evil, as a strategic, propagandistic move to dismantle competing narratives, delegitimize other spiritual traditions, and support the supremacy of the emerging monotheistic story, consolidate its power. It's presented as an act of deliberate historical revisionism.
So it's not just about what was written in the Bible, but what was deliberately unwritten or rewritten from older traditions to fit a specific agenda.
That's the claim.
And modern secret societies are trying to undo that rewriting.
Exactly. The article states that modern secret societies, the inheritors of those mystery schools, see it as part of their mission to expose and reverse this historical and mythological propaganda. They aim to restore what they believe are the original uncorrupted narratives, unveil the layers of revisionism, bring these older stories back to light.
It's like a continuous effort to counteract millennia of perceived deception.
Yeah. And it raises a crucial question for you, the listener, doesn't it? How much of our accepted history, our religious understanding, is a carefully constructed narrative designed to maintain power? And how much has been deliberately obscured or reframed?
It really encourages a deeply critical look at where our knowledge comes from, questioning the very foundations, okay? So after this incredible journey, hidden histories, radical reinterpretations, secret societies, what are the, actionable philosophical takeaways for you, the listener? What does all this mean for your own life, your understanding, your spiritual path?
Well, the core esoteric belief that really emerges from all this, the thread running through everything we've discussed, is that the monad, the true God, is profoundly real. And critically, It exists within you.
Not external.
Not an external deity to be worshipped from afar, petitioned through priests, or feared as some distant judge. Your true divine connection is internal, innate, an inherent part of your being, a spark of the ultimate source right here.
And the false god, the Demiurge.
That's the one dominating material reality, operating through dogma, laws, external authority, all designed in this view to maintain control, deceive humanity, keep us tethered to his prison-like world through rules, fear, manufactured scarcity.
So if the true God, the monad, is within, then redemption isn't about following external rules or appeasing that external deity. It's an internal process of self-discovery, awakening. This is gnosis again, right?
Absolutely. This is where gnosis is paramount. Gnosis means knowledge, right? But not intellectual knowledge of facts or doctrines. It's that intuitive, spiritual knowing. A direct experiential understanding of divine truth gained not from outside, not from dogma, scripture, rituals, but from within yourself.
That deep personal
There's
revelation.
your intrinsic connection to the monad, yeah, of the true nature of reality beyond the demiurge's illusion. So yes, redemption, spiritual liberation, not found in blind obedience or external salvation handed down by some institution. It comes through this profound internal process, self-discovery, cultivating that inner spark.
And this path to liberation, it sounds like it requires a certain kind of courage, a willingness to step outside the lines.
Precisely. This path, critically, requires a willingness to make mistakes, to actively explore, question, cultivate your imagination. It's about self-knowledge, not rigid adherence to prescribed rules or doctrines imposed by the Demiurge's system.
So true awakening comes from
What the article calls transgression, which here means deliberately going beyond imposed boundaries, whether they're intellectual, social, spiritual, continuous learning through direct experience. And unwavering self-belief in your own intuition, your inner compass.
trusting yourself, basically.
Trusting your own inner compass, your intuition, your capacity for personal discovery, rather than relying solely on external guides or dogmatic pronouncements.
That's a really powerful and empowering message for the individual, shifting the whole locus of spiritual authority inward.
Absolutely. The article wraps this part up by urging you, the listener, to trust the light in your heart. See that as your direct personal connection to the monad.
An affirmation of your inherent divinity.
Your authentic inner wisdom, yeah. Your capacity to navigate this complex reality by relying on an internal guide, not just external ones. It's an invitation to become your own spiritual authority, really, to decode the universe through the lens of your own awakened consciousness.
Now, for listeners whose curiosity has really been sparked by all this and want to continue their own deep dive, the article also recommends a couple of further readings, specific esoteric texts.
It does. First is the Book of Enoch, which is apparently invaluable for expanding on those stories of the Nephilim and the rebellious angels, the Watchers. It gives a much more detailed, ancient account of those hybrid beings, their interaction with early humanity, their fall, offering a perspective that complements and deepens the brief mentions in the Bible.
Okay, Book of Enoch. And the second one.
The second is the Gospel of Thomas. This is a mystical collection of Jesus' sayings, quite distinct from the 4 canonical Gospels in the New Testament.
What's significant about it in this context?
What's really significant, esoterically speaking, is its profound emphasis on self-knowledge and direct inner experience over external rituals, doctrines, or church hierarchy. It aligns perfectly with that esoteric view of internal liberation and the monad within that we've been discussing. The kingdom is inside you and all that.
Right. Okay, let's try to wrap this up. We've covered a lot of ground today. We've journeyed from ancient goddess civilizations, divine womb, connection to earth through the rise of polytheism, the imperial spread of monotheism.
Into the hidden knowledge preserved by secret societies.
Re-examined biblical narratives through this radical esoteric lens, exploring the profound idea that the universe and our place in it is way more complex and maybe, just maybe, more constrained than we usually imagine.
And what stands out most vividly, I think, is that persistent, almost defiant thread. Truth lies within.
Yeah.
It challenges that whole idea of external authority being the only source of reality. It tells us that genuine spiritual awakening often involves questioning, actively exploring, maybe even transgressing established norms and dogmas.
It's a call to look beyond the surface.
Challenge the narratives we've inherited and trust that inherent internal wisdom.
So what does this all mean for you, listening right now? For your personal worldview? Consider this final provocative thought. If, and it's a big if, but if our world is indeed something like a prison crafted by a cosmic imposter, the Demiurge, And if the most powerful among us are, in some sense, ancient enslavers in disguise, the Nephilim, well, what does that imply?
Mhm.
For your personal choices, your pursuit of knowledge, your very understanding of freedom, what if the most revolutionary act you can perform in such a reality is simply to trust that inner light, that direct connection to the true monad, and to wholeheartedly embrace the journey of self-discovery, even if, perhaps especially if, it means questioning absolutely everything you've ever been taught?
A powerful place to leave it.
We invite you to continue your own deep dive. Explore these ideas further. Discover what truth resonates most profoundly within you, beyond any imposed narratives. Thank you for joining us on this, well, truly fascinating and mind-expanding journey into the esoteric.